Well, we're into the new year. January is definitely a month for patience, especially for those of us gardeners who have snow in the winter in the northern hemisphere. It's really hard to not, our hands are itching to get into those seed packs to start some seeds. It's those seeds that require longer growing, and we have a shorter season with all this snow. I've still got probably 3 more months at least of snow. We need to start them in advance for later transplanting. But I think we all know the pitfalls of starting our seeds too early also. We have plants that are stressed and weak, and then when it comes time to put these little seedlings outside, their growth is set back so bad that they just don't survive well, if they survive at all. So that's our first step. Know when to start your seedlings. Now, don't be afraid to play also from year to year. Take notes of when you started those seeds and then how did it perform in the garden. A good example for me is leeks. I followed the seed packets and had tiny spindly wee leeks even after the end of the season. So I have learned to start them earlier and earlier. But you have to play around with that. Start with what the seed packs say first, because as a general rule, that works. So let's look at germination. So there's seeds that require light to germinate. They must have light hit them, and seeds that don't. So know the difference of those first. Some good example of those that require either grow lights or your window light to hit them would be, lettuce is a good one, dill, savory, poppies I've made mistakes with, snapdragons. So just know the difference, but pretty much most others, follow the seed pack, go the depth down, and then closely monitor them. If it is seeds that you are laying on top of the soil, just lightly push them into your potting soil and make sure that you maintain the moisture, because they're sitting on top and it dries off very quickly there. Some folks use cellophane or a dome to put over their seed trays, or a heat mat for quicker germination, especially for those difficult seeds that require some heat. I don't use either. I find them okay. And I also find that it's easier for me to monitor the moisture level of the soil without doing those things. I have found that I could get dampening off or moldy soil because I'm not getting the air circulation. So I avoid those, but that's just me. The seeds that don't require daylight or grow light, we can leave on tables. We can, hide them away if you don't have much space at first. But the minute that those seedlings come up, you must make sure they're under light, because though the seed itself in the little pod has the nutrients required for that seedling to grow, the next thing that seedling wants right away is light. So you have to make sure you're on top of that also, make sure they're in the light. I just start mine in the light, to be honest, because I may not be quick enough to catch them. That's when they'll start to go legginess, and that gets us into legginess. We've probably all seen our seedlings go leggy. It is difficult when we're growing them indoors, even if you have grow lights. You've got the levels that you have to put your grow lights and not burn them, and really watch. But those little seeds want to sprout really quickly. And when they come up, I've got some props here. When we have the low light, they're stretching, and those little stems are weak, and they're not getting the proper circulation. We can have fans, but it's still nothing beats starting a seed outdoors in the ground for the health of that little plant. But we can't do that always. As I say, we've got to start earlier. So if the seedlings aren't getting enough light and they're stretching, they really become weak. Those little stems just can't support even the leaves. And if you overwater or underwater, those little stems will flop over. Now, I did an experiment. I got some props here. I did an experiment a little too soon. I drowned this pretty much because there's no drainage in this. This is just some Mizuna, but I drowned this and they all flopped over immediately, and then I neglected to film it. But you can see they're not doing well. They're dying now is what's happening at this stage. Now I just did this as a prop because I've already harvested. These are microgreens. I've already done a harvest and I just started some more seeds. I have tons of Mizuna from my own saved seeds. So, however, you can see that I've killed them from overwatering. They just fell over. Underwatering, you're going to see the same thing. So it's that tricky stage of too much water, not enough water. Always make sure you have drainage though. Always make sure also that you're using a light potting soil or a seed starting soil for these struggling little plants to get their roots down and for the moisture not to be too much. So if you use the triple mix, for example, it's too heavy, it's holding onto too much water. And those little seedlings, here's some smaller ones, just they're not going to have a fighting chance if they're just sitting in water. Another reason your wee seedlings may collapse is from dampening off. Moisture plays a part in that too, I think. It's a pathogen. And just make sure that your equipment that you're using, your trays, are clean. You know, use soapy water. Make sure that hopefully there's none of those pathogens stuck to your pots. But it's something that you'll see, you know, now and then. And it's very frustrating if you have a whole tray of, say, you've started some onion seeds and they, right at the stem, they'll collapse. And there's nothing you can do. You've got to throw them away. Not to be confused with mold, because mold can occur, especially if you're doing like the microgreens. You'll sometimes see a little bit of mold. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Just let them dry out, or I just pat down sometimes if I see the mold, and it goes away. Now, when I'm watering, find out what works for you. It's often advised, definitely, to water from the bottom, and it makes so much sense. But when my seedlings are still small, that's soaking my trays too much. So I find that I don't always water from the bottom. My seedlings don't make it. So I'll lightly spray the top, drizzle on the top. Just with the sink, I'll drizzle down where the actual plant is. Now I do indoor growing of vegetable plants. These plants will never see outdoors, so that's what you're seeing here. These most definitely are not started for my outdoor garden. If I was starting now, those plants would be, well, I would need to pot them on so many times, and they would be large plants, and then you're risking your plants bolting if they're too big before they go out. So indoors I grow tomatoes and peppers, and that's for food production, but I also play around and push the limits, push the boundaries. There's very little light this time of year. My seedlings are going to stretch, and I'm aware of that. But I plant seeds that I know can be transplanted. So like your tomato plants, which we can put deep down. And some I just play around with for the sake of fun. And don't forget to thin those seedlings. They will immediately start competing for the nutrients and water. So we may drop couple of seeds in each cell as we plant, be on top of thinning those. Now when I thin, I'll probably pot these ones on just to salvage them because they still look fairly healthy. But that's probably my #1 way to save leggy seedlings, is to pot them on into larger pots deeper down. And then you're starting off with a stronger, healthier plant to carry on. Well, once again, it's starting to snow here. We're in for 35 centimeters, I believe. But those are some of the things that I try to keep in mind as we're about to start those seeds for the new season. Set us up for success. Keep your eyes on. Have you started your seeds in your region? Are you lucky enough? And let me know some of the things that I may have forgotten to talk about with regards to what we have to watch out for. But that's all for now. Thank you so much. Take care. We'll see you soon.